Before we get started with the Sunday lesson, I wanted to share something with you. As you know, we're asking everybody to read the book "Discover the Power Within You" by Reverend Eric Butterworth, which is available in our gift and bookshop. But we have book discussions on Thursdays. One's at noon and one's at 7. And near the end of the 7 o'clock one this week, I know Sam and Suzanne were there at the book group, and they're talking about, how do you describe unity to other people? And the first thing I encourage everyone is, if you're talking to somebody about unity, just tell them why you come. What is it that makes you come? But Unity did a big study back about 10 years ago about how do we describe who we are to other people? What language do we use? And they came up with this, which is actually out in the foyer on the credenza. It's called the Unity Brand Identity Map Explanation, which is a long way of saying, how do we describe unity to other people? But yeah, there's 2 columns. One is yellow, and it talks about what we discovered about who would really like to find unity out there but doesn't know we exist. And then the blue column is, what are the things we say to them? And then on the second page, it gives you a bunch of examples, just the various people and then various languages and stuff we can use. And you'll recognize a lot of them because we sprinkle them into the service every week. Now the big trademark for unity that they came up with out of this thing was a positive path for spiritual living. So you hear that every week, and then we rotate a lot of these other ones. But I encourage you, to pick one of these up on the way out. Like I say, just the Unity Brand Identity Map Explanation, and this will help you. I hadn't thought about it. What I do is I give these out when we do the What is Unity orientation class, which we'll be holding, today after the service, and then I'll be repeating it again on, Wednesday night at 6:30. But after I have the conversation with them, it's like, I should pass this out because it's been a long time since I talked about this. I think I talked about it near the beginning of last year, but so that's there. So, let's see here. I guess I should start with good morning. The first time Carla and I walked into a Unity church was January 1987. And this wonderful minister, his name was Mike Matoyne. He passed away in 1995, but a big barrel of a guy. He looked like Ed Asner. But he was very humorous, and he was a Chicago native. But as we started to learn about unity, I started realizing, I recognize some of this stuff. Positive mental attitude, which was, of course, a big thing in the 20th century. You had Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, W. Clement Stone, talked about just that positive mental attitude all the time, So, but as I started digging into Unity's writings, I found that Charles Fillmore doesn't use the word positive. He doesn't talk about positive thinking. Now, I know some of you are here for the first time. The Unity movement was founded back in the 1880s by a couple, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle was diagnosed with tuberculosis and told she didn't have much time to live. And yet she heard this lecture from a guy who came through town about mind over matter and meditating, and that, yes, you can spiritually heal yourself from anything. And she did. And so her husband, Charles, is like, we've got to study this and learn more about it. And so Charles, started out writing on this subject, back in like the 1890s. But positive thinking, like I said, he doesn't use positive thinking. And I think it's because he recognized that there's something deeper, that more spiritual elements to it. But I want to show you a TV commercial from about 8 years ago, and I think it very, very quickly illustrates one of the points I'm trying to make. It's a 30-second commercial.
I'm Stanley Johnson. I've got a great family. I've got a 4-bedroom house in a great community. Like my car? It's new. I even belong to the local golf club. How do I do it? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I can barely pay my finance charges. Somebody help me.
Need a smart way to consolidate your debt? At LendingTree.com, banks compete, and you choose the loan that's right for you. When banks compete, you win at LendingTree.com.
Can be positive. Or trying to be positive, but knowing underneath, you're suffering, you're in pain, you're in fear, can be counterproductive. What are our basic assumptions about life? And that's one of the things we need to look at. So that's why, Charles Fillmore didn't mention positive mental attitude. So what did he use, or what did he suggest instead? Well, instead of using positive attitude, he writes of an orderly attitude. So instead of positive, orderly. I think I see his reason for this. It's not that he didn't know about positive mental attitude or positive thinking. I mean, it was the part of the style of the time, but he also knew that there are pitfalls that you want to avoid in positive thinking, like that. Are you just papering over, something else that's going on? So any disorderly thinking person can be acting positive, but unless they get a sense of just making their life right. Many people will pray for things that they think they want when they're in a disorderly state of mind. Of course, the classic of, a woman wanting Mr. Right. Well, maybe the point should be that you need to be Miss Right before you can attract Mr. Right. You think you need more money? Well, yeah. Addicts need more money, and then their money ends up going to their addiction. The late Robin Williams joked about his cocaine addiction. He says, what I learned was that cocaine is God's way of saying you have too much money. So, and then of course we hear stories of lottery winners, that the big lottery, but 5 years later they're bankrupt, so it's a matter of let's make sure that we've got the right foundation to build the house on. I know when Carla and I were traveling during the 90s doing prosperity seminars all over the country, including here in 1992, since we were based in Chicago, a lot of the Chicago congregations would have us teach prosperity classes like on Wednesday night, because we'd be out traveling on weekends and then come back to Chicago usually. And at one of our seminars, or not seminars, this class that we did in Oak Park, Illinois, at the church there, this guy, was part of the class and talked to us afterwards, and he was very enthusiastic and stuff. And he had this great idea for this, a theatrical production and interactive theatrical production. And here this is, the early 1990s. And but then we come to discover he's homeless. And so there was that sense of you need to kind of put your life in order. I mean, it's hard for him to pitch, this great idea when he walks in looking like a homeless person. So what do we need to do as far as bring some order to our life? Order is one of the 12 powers that one of the 12 disciples symbolizes. It's one of those 12 gifts from God that we've got. Let me just list off the 12 here quickly. It's faith, understanding, will, imagination, zeal, power, love, wisdom, strength, order, renunciation, and life. If you're not familiar with the 12 powers, I've got this handout, also out there on the credenza. It's a silhouette of a person and talks about the 12 disciples and the 12 gifts from God that we've gotten on the back. It describes each one of them. But order is a way of declaring and affirming that, okay, God, show me the proper sequence of events so that the proper sequence of events can happen. Sometimes we get our plan, but then somehow our plan isn't unfolding properly. The example I like to use is, okay, let's say you've got a GPS device, global positioning satellite, whatever it is, your phone, or it's in your car, and you want to go from city A to city B. And so you plug in your information to the GPS, and you go. And you get to a spot where the bridge has been washed out the day before. Now, the GPS, your plan is to take this road to city B. There's no bridge. So you're just going to sit there until the bridge is rebuilt, or are you going to try a different route? Recalculating routes. So so that's where you kind of put it out there to Spirit, to God, to say, God, show me the right way that things unfold. We might think that we need to have A, B, C, D, and E, and that's the sequence, but in reality it's no, you need to have D happen after A, and then B, C, and E. And that's where affirming divine order. So, the 12 powers that I just described, these are the prime divine ideas that are out there from God. I've talked about divine ideas, how our minds are connected to the divine mind. And we get these ideas that we realize are right for us to express. You know, they're recurring, and it really brings our passion up. We know, yeah, this is what it is we need to do. And to express a divine idea, you need two things. One is to believe that they exist, and then two, to just be willing to express them when they come to you. Follow through on the guidance, even if it's just taking the first step. Allow it to unfold. I'm going to read to you from one of Charles Fillmore's books. It's Jesus Christ Heals, first published in 1939. On page 117, though, he writes, "All sane persons acknowledge the necessity of observing the laws of health in their daily living. But the great majority have a human standard rather than a divine standard. Now that the whole human race is awakening to the knowledge of a higher source of existence, more people every day are giving attention to the law of spirit in their life." See, the problem is a lot of people react to life rather than being proactive in life. Are you basing how you approach life is a divine idea, or are you basing it on the outer appearances that are in front of you? Because a lot of times outer appearances are chaos. And if we're reacting to this, then we're kind of losing our center of like, okay, well, wait a minute here. What do I know about the way life works? What do I know about being a spiritual being having a human experience? One of Charles Fillmore's teachings was, let's pray for a right state of mind first, and then we can pray to manifest things in this world. If that happens, everything else I pray for will be correct. And if my mind and heart are in the right state, then I'll do the right thing. So, what do we do? Well, there are two other of the 12 disciples. There are 12 powers, and that is zeal and renunciation. You know, zeal is that thing that generates the enthusiasm, but it also has a fascinating aspect to it, and that is that it'll dissolve things that we have manifested in our life that we recognize don't work for us anymore. And then renunciation is that ability to say no, to just flush it out of our system. So we call forth our zeal and renunciation and just put it out there. It's like, okay, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to let go of? I'm going to have Duncan put up our next slide. Sometimes we need to examine our habits, attitudes, and basic assumptions. So we need to be honest with ourselves. Do I hold grudges and then boast about it? Do I wallow in unhappy memories? Remember that whatever we focus on expands. So if we're caught up in those unhappy memories, that's what we're going to keep repeating. Do I have more dislikes than likes? That seems to be an unbalanced approach to life. Have anyone or anything I need to forgive? Do I have clarity on my goals in life? Do I share generously with others and tithe? Do I set aside time every month to do the things I really love to do? Many people are looking for big things that might be wrong with their life. Sometimes it's just the small things. I mentioned Charles and Myrtle Fillmore before. Myrtle Fillmore was where just things didn't seem to be unfolding properly in her life. And so in meditation, she put it out there, okay, God, what do I need to let go of? Or what is my problem right now? And the answer came pride. That she needed to have more humility, and she recognized that she didn't want to feel vulnerable and let people know that, hey, things aren't always all right in her life. And yet, when she was able to reveal that, it was much more powerful because, yeah, we all have our challenges in life. In the Gospel of Luke, 10th chapter, 20th verse, Jesus Christ says, "Rejoice, because your names are written in heaven." And we've talked about the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of God is that absolute realm where God never changes and is always there. And the kingdom of heaven is our ever-growing awareness of spirit, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience and actually living our lives like that. Let's jump back into Charles Fillmore's book, Jesus Christ Heals. On page 117, he says, order is heaven's first law. Order is heaven's first law. If we desire to demonstrate health, then when we receive more spiritual life, we must order this life rightly. For if it is not so ordered, mental and physical disorder will ensue. So let's open our minds to divine guidance and divine timing. Guidance comes through these divine ideas. Now, in this book, Charles Fillmore has 7 words in the next paragraph that are very powerful. The words are, ask for wisdom, then affirm divine order. Ask for wisdom, then affirm divine order. And Duncan, go ahead and put up the next slide. This has become one of my favorite affirmations. And you probably have heard it if you've been around for a while. But yeah, it's just, I ask for wisdom, then I affirm divine order in my mind, body, and affairs. Let's say that together. I ask for wisdom, then I affirm divine order in my mind, body, and affairs. And then let go of it. Let go of it rather than haggling in your mind about the right thing to do. Just let that happen. Just let go of it, and then you'll get the guidance on what's your next steps to take. Now, the interesting thing about this is if you look at it, you're not praying to change anybody else. Saying, oh, this person's really annoying. I'd like God to change their personality. So, well, no, you're asking for divine order. You're asking for divine guidance rather than that. What we're asking for essentially is our own self-improvement. Jesus Christ says, ask and you shall receive. Seems too simple, right? But there it is, right there in the Gospel of Luke. So let me jump back into Charles Fillmore's book, Jesus Christ Heals. Ask for wisdom, then affirm divine order. Put yourself in unity with Spirit. Then you will find yourself doing many things differently because the orderly mind that directs the universe is now working in concert with your mind. So Duncan, let's put up this week's takeaways. First thing we want to do when we have a challenge in life is just kind of turn away from outer appearance. It's like, okay, wait a minute here, God, show me the good in this kind of an attitude. 2, focus on Spirit, also known as God. And then 3, pray. What shall I let go of? What do I need to let go of? Reveal that which needs to be revealed. Heal that which needs to be healed. Believe that divine ideas exist. Be willing to express those divine ideas. And then ask for wisdom, then affirm divine order. Our video is a 3-minute story by Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News in which sometimes order can cross the line into becoming obsession.